Well, 60 years, happy 60th anniversary, IRES. It's just wonderful to be able to celebrate this. I came to George Washington University in January 1994. I came as a professor of political science and international affairs, and was thrilled to be connected to IRES right away. The director, Jim Millar, was incredibly welcoming, and it was such an amazing community. People like Peter Reddaway working on Russia, Carl Linden as well, who had been such an amazing Soviet expert, and then continued on after the end of the Cold War. Sharon Wolchik working on Central and Eastern Europe, Mike Sodaro working on Germany and other issues more broadly about Europe. It was just a really wonderful group of people to welcome me and help me get oriented to Washington, D.C. I became acting director of IRES in 1999 for a year when Professor Millar went on sabbatical. And then he came back for one more year before he retired. And when he retired, after his dozen years directing the Institute, I became director in the fall of 2001 and directed IRES for 4 years. So I started as director in August of 2001. And of course, September 11th happened shortly after I became director. And it was quite a shock to all of us sitting there in then what was Stewart Hall. We were in the old Elliott School building up by the law school. And, when I remember being in the office that morning, one of the individuals in the office, Ann Robertson, who was editor of the journal Problems of Post-Communism, had her TV on and said, "You've got to come see this." And one plane had hit the tower. And as we're watching, then, the second plane hit. We knew that there was something terrible going on. And pretty soon we could then see smoke from Stewart Hall after the plane hit the Pentagon. And so, that was just an incredibly difficult period for all of us at the Elliott School and at GW, and being in Washington, D.C. When these terrible events were happening. I think of course, what makes any kind of center or institute are the people, and I had an opportunity to work with amazing people, and it's just sad that several of them are no longer with us. And so I just, really want to highlight the role that Jim Millar played. He was an incredible mentor to so many people, including me. He was there every day. He would stop in my office every morning when he came in, and he would stop in my office again every afternoon before he left. And he would give me all sorts of advice. Sometimes I asked for it. Sometimes he just gave it unsolicited. And it was always welcome, because he always just had such a sharp eye, insight. He knew more about universities than anyone I've ever known. And he just was so generous in wanting me to succeed as director after his many years of being director. And I was also helped greatly by the work of the main administrator in IRES, Suzanne Stevenson, who tragically passed away later, long after I was director, but passed away in a terrible scuba diving accident. Suzanne was just amazing. She loved to travel, and she was always scheming about how to get her travel points. And much of my amusement during my 4 years as director was hearing her talk about how she and her husband Richard were taking all sorts of short jumps to Cleveland and Detroit and so on to build up the necessary points. Richard's very tall, so build up the necessary points so they could go on their next scuba adventure. And she just meant so much to the IRES and broader Elliott School community, and her loss, as well as the loss of Jim Millar in 2008 from cancer, was just a huge blow to those of us the Institute. We had lots of visiting scholars while we were there at the Institute, and perhaps the one that has risen the most is Kalinda Grabar-Kitarovich, who was a Fulbright visiting scholar when I was director, and later became the president of Croatia. And she always stayed in touch. She never forgot us, and has mentioned to me on more than one occasion about how fond she was of her time at the Institute, and you know how much she gained from the experience of being connected to George Washington University. You know, IERES has just been a wonderful place to be associated with. I'm thrilled with all the people that I met. I was really delighted to be able to work with people like Hope Harrison and Jim Hirschberg and Greg Brzezinski on building the George Washington Cold War Group, with all the activities that we did there, including the Summer Institute on conducting archival research. And so I just wish IERES another great 60 years after this one, and know that it's in great hands now, and have really been pleased to see all the great work that Henry Hale and Peter Rollberg and Marlene and Bob and others have done to really help continue to build the Institute and continue to make it thrive. And I just wish IERES a happy 60th and many, many more.